Welcome back. A raft of tariffs announced by the United States and the subsequent pause to implement them have caused panic and markets as investors are gripped by uncertainty. Termed Liberation Day, US President Donald Trump earlier this month announced what he called reciprocal tariffs, sending shockwaves through the global trading system and financial markets. He has paused the implementation of the reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, except for China, which has retaliated against the US tariffs. Joining us now is Professor Lawrence Edwards. He is from the School of Economics at the University of Cape Town. He joins us via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Let's start off here. This trade war and this tit-for-tat war we continue to see between the US and China. What is your reaction to the latest coming out of that 125% tariff increase from China?
Well, I think it's very worrying for everyone. The last thing we want to see is a trade war. It could essentially collapse global trade. It could pose real challenges for all economies, not just the US and China. So the implications are broader than just those two countries. I mean, as they're playing the tit-for-tat game, I think the repercussions could be felt for the rest of the economy through slow global growth. That would imply slower exports for South Africa and other economies as well. And so I think there are real risks that this could precipitate or trigger a slow global growth, possibly even a recession, and the implications for us are dire.
I mean, China also says that, they will not go further than 125% when it comes to some of these tariffs. What do you make of China's reaction, saying that these are just meaningless, increases in tariffs?
Well, I think once you're starting to pay 125% additional payment over and above the price of a good, it starts to get very, very expensive. And the net effect is at that point, imports are probably going to collapse close to zero. Now, the US is imposing tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese goods. And all estimates suggest that at that price, at that tariff level, Chinese goods simply cannot compete in the US market in many cases. And so tariffs beyond that point are meaningless. Effectively, at the levels of tariffs we're talking about now, trade is going to collapse to very low levels or potentially collapse to very low levels. And so at this point, unless they withdraw and step down, I think we're in a situation where trade between those two countries is going to fall dramatically.
Then what will that mean, Professor, when it comes to businesses in both of those countries? I mean, these are two world superpowers, and it seems as if, this trade war is not going to end anytime soon.
Well, I think for businesses in those countries, it's pretty dire. I mean, but I think we also need to think about the consumers in both countries, and particularly the consumers in the United States. And the US are importing large quantities of goods from China, and many of these goods are productive inputs. These are goods that are used in the production process. And so raising the price of those goods is going to increase the cost of production in the US. The other part of those goods are goods that are consumer goods. These are goods that the US doesn't produce, but China produces. And so when we're raising the price of these by 145%, the US consumer is going to pay a lot. Now, on the flip side, you can imagine what's going to happen to the Chinese producers. They're going to find a key market for theirs is closed off. And the question we want to really think about is, what are they going to do? And this, I think, bears on South Africa as well, is because those exporters, those Chinese firms that are going to now trying to find new markets, and we're going to start finding increased competition for our companies that are exporting in foreign markets, and they're going to start finding increased competition in our own market from these Chinese firms as well.
What will that mean for the state of the global economy, particularly when you pointed a bit earlier on to issues around, we could even see a recession soon?
Well, exactly. And trade is a key driver of economic growth, and it has been a key driver of economic growth. And it's been a key driver, actually, Chinese growth. And so if we curtailing this trade, if we're curtailing trade between these two countries, it could cause global growth to slow. Now, we also need to be cautious. I mean, those two economies are big players, but the US is only accounting for, I think, around 17% of global imports. So it's a big player, but it's not the only player. And so I think there's some resilience outside of these markets to this trade war. But nevertheless, the net effect is we could see it slowing down production, slowing down demand for goods, and these repercussions could be felt elsewhere within the global economy.
Does it mean that these two superpowers need to come back to the drawing board and try and find solutions? Because, I mean, this in turn has dire consequences for many people in the world.
Yeah. Well, certainly. I think they've hit the end point in this tit-for-tat tariff regime. And so the only option for them is to step back in some ways. Now, I think the only way will be there has to be some negotiated outcome, some way in which each party can leave the current situation feeling like they haven't made the major concessions and having lost the war. And that, I think, is going to be very difficult, and it's going to require very careful diplomacy between the two countries. I think China will probably need to offer some concession to the US, and then the US will reciprocate, hopefully. But clearly they need to step back on this escalation. I think this is a key concern around this, are the mechanisms to drive this de-escalation. And previously, within the World Trade Organization, there were mechanisms where the countries could negotiate in order to reduce reciprocal tariffs. That system's not working. And so it's going to require government-to-government negotiations out of the normal to try and pull us back from this brink of an extreme trade war.
Very interesting there, Professor. Thank you so much for your time. That's Professor Lawrence Edwards. He's from the School of Economics at the University of Cape Town. They're just weighing in on those trade wars between the US as well as from China.